Why are so many tattoo artists rude as hell?
Oh, I'm thinking about moving over here to New York and starting to tattoo as well. Oh, really? And he gets like mega heavy. And this is like a 300+ pound dude. Putting like his full body weight, just like,
Yeah,
it's
and
super
like,
scary.
what are you supposed to do halfway through a tattoo? Like, dude's putting his whole body weight on you. You can't
Man,
move.
You
like,
can't breathe.
So both clients and like other tattooers you're going to meet along your journey, you're going to hear of some artists that are typically very difficult to deal with in tattooing, and that definitely kind of aligns with my experience. Like my first mentor, it was kind of like 24/7 walking across eggshells just to avoid setting him off.
And when I first started, I was super willing to go through and do everything, but after getting put down every single day, it slowly starts to take a hit on you. But luckily, I never became that asshole tattoo artist. But a lot of people in the industry, it does change.
Yeah, it's sort of like, it can go one of two ways, right? There's half the people are going to get exposure to being beaten down during their apprenticeship, dealing with a jerk as a mentor in some cases, or other artists in the shop, and they say, I'm gonna perpetuate this cycle. I was treated like this, I'll treat my guys like this, and it keeps it going. But the other half will say, well, that's what I don't want to be like, and they'll go out of their way to sort of like be friendly, be open, and be more welcoming.
Which is actually the whole reason why we do what we do, because we don't want to have the people go through the same problems that we did.
Yeah, absolutely.
So learn from our mistakes.
Yeah, so in this episode, we're going to be explaining, how and why this happens and how you can avoid it so you don't become one of those, grumpy old cranky tattooers that, you dislike at the moment, and that never becomes you.
Absolutely. And let's be serious, clients don't necessarily like those people anyway. Sometimes they're good artists so they could get away with it.
Yeah.
But if you're not a good artist and a grumpy tattoo artist, it's going to greatly affect how much you make in this industry.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think it's important to mention as well, the way that the typical tattoo apprenticeship is designed, it's supposed to be super hard. It's supposed to be sort of super brutal. A lot of artists or mentors don't think about the long tail effect of that. Okay, it can kind of poison some people once they go through it. They just kind of become bitter. And they, again, I think it was you, Jay, that just said before, they perpetuate that cycle, onto other people. It's almost like they stay in tattooing long enough to become the person that they hated in the beginning.
Become the villain.
Yeah, exactly.
You either die the hero or live long enough to make yourself become the villain. So as a whole, in this industry, there's a ton of damaged tattoo artists, right? We've all seen it, the people that are really hard to talk to at conventions. They're usually the people that stay up all night drinking and then get into tattooing in the morning. So
yeah.
How would you say to not have yourself become that, Jay?
Yeah, I think being aware of it first and foremost. I think a lot of times when you're in there and you're getting exposed to it, you're getting hazed, you're getting stuff thrown at you. Some guys I see who like slowly become that grumpy person is because they're unconscious. Yeah, they're unaware that's even happening to them. So I think just being aware of it and being mindful of it is a great way to protect yourself first and foremost.
Yeah, for sure. And have you ever had those feelings, Nathan?
Yeah, I think definitely as the years kind of roll on by and you're in that apprenticeship situation, it can definitely build up and kind of you can start to become a bit bitter. I know I was like for a couple of years after I finished my apprenticeship, I was like very resentful of not only the people that I came across, but even at some points tattooing as a whole, I felt like I had just had like this brutal kind of journey, and I was like super frustrated and like angry about it. But I don't know, there's two ways you can go about it. You can project that out on other people, which is what a lot of artists do. It's like, hey, I had to go through hell, so you got to go through it too. Or like I think it's like Jay said, you can protect people from going through what you went through, so they don't have to suffer the same as you did.
And I will say that it's not only projecting this anger towards other tattoo artists in this industry. Once you get in that mindset, it's also going after your clients. So like, if someone comes in and wants something changed to your tattoo, you're like, oh, I'm too good for that, like whatever. And that really affects the kind of connection you have with your clients and could build up a really bad reputation in this industry. Yeah. So without actually understanding those things when you're going through and like being mentally aware of that, you could honestly destroy your whole career just because of a bad event happening in your life.
Yeah, I would say it's getting a little bit easier too these days. Like I know that when we all first started 10, 15 plus years ago, it was a very different sort of industry than it is now. Like nowadays, I feel like you have a lot of fine artists who are seeing tattooing as a way to sort of get paid to keep drawing and painting, right?
Yep.
And you have like actual like well-rounded, grounded individuals. But back when we were first like, not to be like back in my day, but back then it was more like bikers, rough and tumble. You didn't see a lot of well-adjusted individuals coming into the tattoo world, right?
Yeah, a lot less people that have art degrees in college back then.
Yeah.
It was like, oh well, I have nothing else to do.
Yeah.
I think also a lot of artists typically have like a colorful past as well. I mean, even look at like the artists from back in the day, like Van Gogh, that dude cut his ear off.
Seriously.
You know,
Yeah.
and sent it to someone. So it's just like a lot of artists are damaged people. We've all got something that's kind of had some kind of trauma, like when we were like younger or something like that. And our art
Yeah.
was kind of like, you know, free therapy or an outlet.
An outlet, yeah.
And
absolutely.
Yeah, so
you're not dealing with like, you know, the same people that would if you go to work at the bank. You know?
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, it's typically like the edge cases and the outliers in
yeah, I
in
mean
life.
that all has to do with like, you know, left and right brain, obviously. So like artists kind of have that different mindset of I would even say looking at the world a little bit differently and more like aware of like, you know, I don't want to get too philosophical, but like, you know, just life in general. So whenever you're like going through life like that and get hit with like, you know, trauma throughout a period of time, it really starts to work on your mental well-being. So yeah, it's really important to kind of understand those things going in. But I'm pretty sure the ear incident also had to deal with him eating his paints
Eating
too.
paint, yeah.
Yeah, so like there was like, you know,
Lead or something.
yeah, it made him a little. So just don't drink your ink and you'll be
But I would argue though, if you start eating your paint, you already have some mental issues.
Absolutely, yeah.
That in the first place.
Oh, you're so hard up for cash that yeah. But I think as well, another thing too, in tattooing, it's a lot of artists get into it really young and it's their first job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they don't actually know what it's like to work in a normal environment. They kind of just grow up thinking anything goes. You know,
Yeah.
it's like they're getting into tattooing so young. So when they're, you know, in a professional environment, it's the tattooing version of a professional environment. Whereas opposed if you're a bit older and you get into tattooing, if you've worked in like a corporate job, you kind of know how to carry yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a bit different. It's the only job you've ever had.
So what would you say would be the most efficient, getting into it older in life or younger?
Definitely younger.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like when you're just more durable when you're
Yeah.
younger.
Yeah.
Do you know what I
For
mean?
sure. But I would give the other side of the story to where you'd be more almost business oriented the older I
Yeah.
get, because I'm way smarter than I was. Let's be serious. I was
Yeah.
a dumb kid. I've made tons of mistakes, and I wouldn't go through those same mistakes if I am what I am now. So I feel like, you know, there's a lot of people out there watching that are a little bit older,
Yeah.
and you know,
I'd say it's easier to get started if you're younger,
Yes.
but it's easier to maintain if you get into it a little bit later on in life, just because, you know, you're gonna have more experience, you're gonna be better with people.
there's more riding on it too, right? Like you have to like take care of your family, so you kind of have that drive to make
Yeah.
it happen. Because like when I was younger, I was like, if I'm homeless, whatever, I'll eat ramen
Just
noodles.
figure it out.
Yeah, but you have kids, you know, you have something that you need to build a life for, and honestly, that's a big drive for me even to this day.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
I don't want to ever stop growing because of that simple factor. So yeah, that's one point I wanted to give out as well.
Yeah, that's great. Absolutely.
Plus, if you've worked in like a corporate job, typically, you know, especially if it's like at a higher level, like if you've been like, you know, in management or something like that, there's a lot of responsibility. And if you know, develop like a really, really, you know, strong, efficient sort of work ethic, there's a lot of tattooers that, don't get me wrong, there's some extremely hardworking tattooers, but there's also some tattooers that don't work that hard.
yeah.
You know, they just kind of go in, they draw the design the morning of, or, you know, worse, print it off Pinterest or something like
Yeah.
that. You know, if you come in, you're super organized, you're super disciplined, you can outwork a lot of people just by having those really good habits.
I would say the big difference I saw too with, you know, having younger artists and older artists come into our shop over the years is that for the younger artist, the typical response was like, well, I just kind of fell into it, so I'll just kind of ride this out and see how it goes. Whereas if you're older and you have a family and you're leaving a career, that's a very, how do you say, like very well thought out decision.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like you've actually taken the time to weigh the pros and cons and you're super serious about it. Whereas if you're a kid coming into it, you're like, well, if it doesn't work out, I'll just eat ramen and hitch trains or something.
Yeah, just the wild lifestyle.
Yeah.
Also with that, what's you know, talking about, you know, kind of the tattoo artists being rude and stuff, what's one of the biggest stories that play out in your mind when it comes to that? Like, I have quite a few dealing with rude tattoo artists, or like, people that weren't all mentally there. What would be your number one story for that?
Yeah, so I was again. I was watching my mentor tattoo. It was actually another artist from a different shop, like in another city,
Okay.
and he got a huge leg sleeve from my mentor, and I don't even know how he found out, but apparently there was another guy in his city that asked him where he got that tattoo done, and he didn't tell him. He said, "Oh, just," he was very vague about it, but. And then my mentor found out about it, and then because his client refused to say his name and get him and recommend him, he just said, "Look, I'm not tattooing you anymore." He just told the guy, "It's like, man, that's it." But in reality, you have to think he's another tattoo artist in another shop. He's got a mentor that's saying you can't recommend other artists in different shops, otherwise you're like done. He's trying to keep the work in his shop. He's just doing what he's been told.
Yeah.
But instead of understanding that, he's just like, "No, you're done. Boom." Get rid of them.
I would say my biggest one was, looking at this guy's work. It started out really good, but I've noticed that throughout a period of time, he kind of got into possibly drinking a little bit more, possibly some drugs and stuff. And, that could be personal thing or just like kind of a remedy for, all the past trauma and stuff.
Coping mechanism.
Yeah, coping mechanism.
Yeah.
In one period of time, I could tell he was having a bad day. And this was like the guy that you could very easily tell he was having a bad day, and you just kind of left him alone, kind of a...
Get that vein popping.
thug type guy,
Yeah.
willing to scrap at any moment. And he was just sitting there trying to set up his machine, which obviously he's done thousands of times throughout his life. But for this day, he was not feeling it. And I was just kind of watching him, not eye contact, but like out of this corner of my eye so he didn't see me looking. And he was like setting up, would like start slamming stuff. And then at one point, he just kind of like stood up and chucked his machine across the room. And it just shattered into a million pieces, and he completely walked out. He came back a couple days later, so he did keep working, but obviously with a different machine. But that's just the type of things in a tattoo industry that if you were any other job, fired on the spot.
Yeah.
No doubt about it, you are not coming in tomorrow.
Yeah.
But those are, honestly, I've seen that plenty of times.
And I've had dozens of different experiences like that, because a big part of like my early sort of career was traveling around 2 different studios, either to get tattooed, collect information, start building a blog and stuff in the beginning, or to try and tattoo. And I would try and like sneak the idea about like I'm a tattoo artist, or like any tips or ask questions and stuff like that. I'll just share one is that I was in New York City, a very famous tattoo shop, and all the guys there are very much like from Brooklyn or from the Bronx, and like very serious like. So I'm getting tattooed. And at that time I was thinking about moving to New York. And I made the mistake of mentioning like, oh, I'm actually a tattoo artist from Hawaii, thinking of moving to New York. And taking your clients is, I guess, how it was received, right? And I'm getting these tattoos. I won't point them out, but I'll tell you guys after. So we don't call anybody out. But we get about halfway through like the first tattoo. I just start mentioning like, I'm a tattoo artist as well. Oh, really? He gets a little bit heavier. Oh, I'm thinking about moving over here to New York and starting to tattoo as well. Oh, really? And he gets like mega heavy. And this is like a 300+ pound dude, putting like his full body weight, just like, so it's like always like walking on eggshells, to your point, especially when you're walking into somebody else's shop and you're a tattoo artist. You're the competition.
Yeah,
it's
and
super
like,
scary.
What are you supposed to do halfway through a tattoo? Like, dude's putting his whole body weight on you. You can't move.
You can't breathe.
Yeah.
That was bruised.
So you're kind of stuck for that period of time.
Yeah.
I was going to say like another story I've seen as well. This kind of, it's funny laughing back at it now, but kind of when it happened, it was kind of, a bit, you could hear a pin drop. It was like that wild. I've seen couples come into studios that want to get each other's names tattooed on, which probably isn't a good idea, especially when you're young anyway, but you're not supposed to say that. I've literally heard artists say, it's just like, look, the girl's like going to the bathroom or whatever, he goes to the guy, it's like, look, man, this tattoo's going to stick around longer than her. Like,
I've heard that so many times.
Are you sure you want to do this, man? And naturally, they obviously never came back for another tattoo after that. But
yeah, imagine.
Now, I will say that I have absolutely tattooed those things and then covered them up a year later. So that's job security.
So I have an extreme one that might get cut, but so the shop next to ours, the guy was known for being super, super serious. Maybe one of those tattoo shops where the tattooing is less of a priority than other businesses that are running out of that location. And anyway, long story short, as a client went in there to get a tattoo, or to get a piercing, excuse me, the wife was the piercer. They had an argument of some sort. He ended up saying some words to the wife and then leaving. Word got out that the tattoo artist, the owner, was upset and he was looking for the kid. And so the kid's like, well, I got to go back in and apologize to the tattoo artist and his wife because I don't want any trouble, you know? And the tattoo artist comes in, he's like, oh, hey, welcome back. And he's like, yeah, I'm so sorry. I just wanted to apologize. I was having a bad day, whatever. Tattoo artist is like, no worries at all. Bring it in. Let's hug it out. Went to hug him, stabs him in the back with a dagger.
Oh my God! What?
Yeah. So that's an extreme case of tattoo artists being assholes, I think. But he didn't die. He lived. Yeah, the guy did not go to jail.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
So we might cut that one, but
No, that's perfect.
yeah, super scary. Some of these shots,
I
man.
wasn't prepared for that at all.
Oh, okay.
Were you prepared for that?
Well, I've heard some tattooers doing some gnarly stuff too. Like I remember, again, I'm not calling anyone out, but yeah, I've heard of some cars being burnt.
Oh yeah, for
It's
sure.
like, yeah, some cars.
I would rather it be my car burnt than me though.
Yeah,
So-
that's true. Yeah.
So, back on the subject of tattoo artists being assholes, what would be your best advice to not let yourself fall into that never-ending pit of doom?
Yeah, I feel like, so a big part of it is the ego, right?
Yes.
I think a little bit of an ego is necessary in tattooing to be able to even be able to think that you are worthy of marking someone else's body for the rest of their lives. You have to have a level of self-confidence that you can do that is a little bit on the egotistical side.
Yeah.
But if you go too far, and that becomes like drawing on a person is like drawing on paper where you kind of don't respect it,
Yeah.
you feel like you're above certain tattoos, then it can definitely become a problem. Yeah. A little bit of ego is necessary, but too much, it's like salt. It makes everything better, but if you pour the whole jar on the meal, it ruins the meal.
Yeah.
And also for everyone out there watching, what are some instances that you have experienced with asshole tattoo artists? I'm sure everyone has quite a few stories just like us. We would love to see in the comments so we could check them out.
I think a big part of it too is that a lot of tattooers, if their only skill is really tattooing, they don't have sort of like the business side or the marketing side, they really easily fall into that scarcity mindset because they feel like it's a fixed pie of clients, right? And so if there's a shop next door, then they have to kind of compete for a limited market.
But when you think about it, it's quite funny because if you look at the actual numbers, how many people, like if you go to any state that requires a tattoo license, how many people in that state get their tattoo license every single day compared to how many people turn 18
Oh yeah.
in that state every single day? The numbers are like dramatically, different. So,
And here's the best point of this. If you're focused more on getting better and less on being a certain kind of way, being a jerk to everybody, you're going to get way more clients and won't have to worry about that at all.
yeah, spending more time on improving your craft, becoming a better artist, as opposed to trying to tear everyone else down, it's going to be a much more effective strategy to grow your tattooing career.
Especially on a business that relies completely on the clients walking through the door.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think as well with a scarcity mindset, it limits your opportunity for building a network within the industry, right? Because if you're constantly thinking that every other artist is competition, it's like, I know, like if I'm doing neotrad, I never have to compete with the anime tattoos guy because they're two different types of clients, and having connection that, like I've always said, the more relationships that you have in tattooing, the more profitable and more fulfilling your career is going to be.
Absolutely, and it comes really down to tattooing as a whole is different than any other career, right? It's one of the best careers to get into, but it also has a lot of dark things to it, right? So if you have a good group of people that do what you do, you're able to communicate about those things and have different views and points on how to kind of get better or get to that final outcome. And talking about like business perspectives with tattooing, just having that kind of communication with other artists is just a game changer that you're not going to get.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like, what's that saying? It's like, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
If you want to build, any sort of, I don't know, level of success, wealth, financial security, whatever that involves having a larger sort of business and a shop with other artists in it, it's going to be pretty hard to do that by yourself.
Yeah, and no one's going to want to stay in a shop that you're just a grumpy dude like
Yeah.
24/7. Like no one wants to be around that. That's not fun.
And on the client side as well, like we've had lots of clients come over to us with like really good tattoos. Like, oh, where'd you get that to? Oh, it's so and so's down the street. Oh, why didn't you go back? He's kind of a jerk, you know. And they've lost that client for life. Not just that client, but every person that client speaks to, all their friends, all their family, all their social media followers.
Yeah.
So.
And that says a lot too. If a client is, willing to go to an artist that has a completely different style to, the one that they, paid thousands of dollars for and they obviously liked initially, and they're just going to a complete 180. It just goes to show how important the experience is, as well as the actual tattoo itself.
Yeah.
Because as a whole, people want to go to someone that they've already met, right? So if you are a kind person, a good person, and your tattooing's mediocre, they're going to want to keep going back to that person rather than the jerk that could tattoo worldwide, you know?
I have seen so many artists that they're not the best, but they're very likable.
Yeah.
Okay, they're very personable, they're funny to be around, they're social, they crack jokes all day. You can overlook a wobbly line. If you had a great experience, it's just like, but Dave's a good dude.
He's a great dude. He's pretty much family.
Yeah. But if you're like, one of those artists that walks in, got the rock star jacket on, headphones on as soon as the tattoo starts, having a smoke break every 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It's just like, man, you better be...
You better be on point,
yeah,
dog.
You better be, Ink Master level material, because I'm like, you're done otherwise,
Well, think about it for yourself too. Like when you walk into a restaurant, or I guess in this case, a tattoo studio, and you're gonna spend hours with somebody, would you rather spend it, especially when you're going through some pain, right? Laughing, cracking jokes, telling stories, whatever, or sit there being tense and afraid to upset the guy the whole time,
It's just not fun.
Nah.
Yeah. You want tattooing to be like an enjoyable experience as opposed to, it's just like, oh, I've got to endure the next, 6 hours to get this tattoo that I want to get and then never go back there.
Yeah.
So yes, pretty much in this video, we just kind of wanted to go, not only explain how to not become that grumpy old dude, but also give you an understanding of how it happens in tattooing, right? Because a lot of artists don't actually start out that way. They come into this industry passionate, super stoked about tattooing, starry-eyed, just want to be the best artist that they can be. But because of the way, some shops more than others, it can be a little bit toxic. And then over time that I think gets, it can kind of poison them, right? And then they end up just repeating that cycle. Every apprentice that comes under them or everyone that they interact with, they project those same, negative vibes onto them, and it just repeats the cycle, right? So I guess the biggest takeaway from this video is, when you do get into tattooing and you do come across, people that have come from different backgrounds and things like that, don't let, their negative experiences become yours and repeat the cycle. Like the more, you can kind of keep like a level head and stay passionate about the art and keep trying to be the best artist you can be, and helping other artists out that are walking the same path as you, then the more that stuff's going to start to die out,
And the better you're going to make it in this industry.
For sure, 100%.
And that's it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.